guys, I'm going to do this real quick because it's cold, it's rainy, it's about to rain, and there's people around, and I'm talking to my hand. But I'm at Greyfriars. Right here is one of the ward safes, those bars over the graves to keep the resurrection men from taking the bodies. But I know you guys, I always made a big deal, I'm not a ghost believer, still not. But right behind me is a tomb of a guy named Robert Mackenzie. And we mentioned the Covenanters earlier. These were the guys that signed the National Covenant in 1637, rededicating Scotland to the Presbyterian faith. And they signed it in their blood. And then after King Charles II was restored to power, a lot of them were hunted down for being king killers, and some of them were imprisoned. And in fact, they were imprisoned right here at Greyfriars Kirkyard. In fact, right where my finger is pointing is a gate, and behind that is just a field. And that's where a lot of them were kept out in the open during days like this. It's rainy and cold for years, and the guy in charge of capturing them and imprisoning them here was Robert Mackenzie. And I'm going to turn around so you can see the tomb a little bit better. But the ghost story goes that in the 1990s, some young guys broke into there, because you can see most of these tombs, like this one, is kept locked. And a couple of the kids, climbed in late at night, and they kind of disturbed the tomb, and they even opened up the grave, and they claimed they felt something. I've heard different versions of it, but they got pushed down. But anyway, behind, you can see here, and behind me, these are all apartments that go up against the cemetery, right? So according to residents here, and of course ghost tour guides, since the 1990s, Mackenzie's Poltergeist, that means angry ghost in German. Apparently, sorry, I'm trying to get certain just right, have felt presences, walls shaking, things falling off the wall. Again, I'm not really a believer in this stuff. However, back in 2016, I came to Scotland a week before the students did, so like mid-May. And in fact, I stayed, my finger right where my big fat finger is, that window unit. That was my apartment that I had rented. I'm going to move under this tree that's raining now, but there's no people around, so I have to be as embarrassed. And anyway, I was there. I got here on a Sunday night. 6 months earlier, I'd had a gallbladder operation. And anyway, Sunday night, I got here. That's on the third floor, our third floor. We call it the third floor. And Monday, I went to Howie's to make reservations for that year. And then the next day, Tuesday, I went up for a hike. Wasn't feeling very good. Went to buy a book. Big surprise. Didn't have my credit card. I went back on the hike everywhere. Couldn't find my credit card. I was like, oh my God. Well, I had some cash, and I had all the cash for the program. And because back then I used to just basically bring a sack of cash to pay for stuff, more than I do now. And now we try to do most of it prepay. Anyway, Tuesday, I'm like, oh my God, this is bad. So I called my wife. She had called the other professor when on your booth, and so she was going to bring some more money and another credit card. And anyway, late that night, about 3 a.m., I'm in that apartment. And the worst I've ever felt. Even worse than when I had my gallbladder. Just horrible pain. And I finally just said, I'm leaving. I gotta go to the hospital. So I literally this is back before I had a UK phone. So calling my wife meant doing Facebook earlier. So I didn't, not like now where I could just call somebody. So I literally just took my passport, my cash, all the cash, and left. And I finally found a taxi. They took me to the hospital. I was in the hospital for 5 days. Some morphine for 5 days. They had locked up my money and passport to keep it safe. such as other morphine. I finally get out the night before students arrive, but they didn't. But the person with the key to the lockbox doesn't come until Monday, and so luckily the London professor brought some cash to the house and checked out of the apartment. And I'm being joined by a tour, so I'm gonna have to move. You see behind me, the tour just cut to my dry spot. Anyway, gotta tell this real quick. It's not that good. Anyway, I got to Howie's. Turned out I left a credit card at Howie's, so that was saved. And then Monday I got my money out. But on that trip, we had a student, and I've told this before, we had a student that actually got lost. She, without going into details, she was going through some issues mentally. We eventually had to take her to the hospital for a few days. And we had another student that I had to take to the hospital on that trip. Luckily, it was just constipation. Anyway, at the end of that trip, that was the trip I got on antidepressants for about a year. That was a very stressful trip. Anyway, a year later, I was telling students about the Mackenzie Poltergeist. And of course, again, I'm not a believer in ghosts. And of course, one of the students went, Dr. Nelson, you were in an apartment that's supposed to have a poltergeist. You had to go, and I was like, I still don't believe, but it is the closest thing in my life that I kind of could argue is a bit of a ghost story. So I don't really think it was related, but it is interesting that the only time I had major problems on this program, and we had a lot that year, was the year I was staying in a flat that is supposed to be haunted by the Mackenzie poltergeist. One last thing, now that it's all sunny but I'm wet, you can get a better sense of that Mort safe, which they purposely left this one there, but these would have been all over a lot of these graves. And again, that's why a lot of these tombs, that make you nice and dizzy, seeing behind me, a lot of these are locked. That does go back to the time of Burke and Hare. And of course, Burke and Hare didn't dig them up. They just killed them. But these resurrection men used to resurrect the bodies by digging them up. Anyway, that's my one ghost story. Okay, thanks guys.